Hi, welcome to Cilium Weekly episode number 41. Cilium Weekly is a weekly show where I cover a new Cilium feature. Today I'm not really covering a feature, but I'm covering something I'm really excited about, which is a Terraform provider for Cilium. It only came out last week. It already has 729 downloads, and it was created by our friend Joseph. You can find the link here, you can find the repo. Again, it's very early days as I'm publishing this. It's version 0.0.3, but it lets you configure Cilium using Terraform. Now, I've been a big fan of Terraform for about 6-7 years now. First time I used it, I thought it was magical, especially as a network engineer where network automation isn't really our forte, being able to automate infrastructure deployment from code is really amazing. And I've actually, published lots of blog posts and videos about Terraform. I even joined HashiCorp for a little while to work full-time on infrastructure as code. So I'm a big fan of Terraform. Obviously, Terraform is not truly open source anymore. We also have the new alternative version, OpenTofu. Right now, the demo I'm going to show you is based on the classic Terraform, but this should work shortly with OpenTofu once this provider is available on the OpenTofu registry. So, having said all this, let's move straight into a demo. So, we'll start the demo by looking at a couple of Terraform files before deploying a Kubernetes cluster using Terraform and also installing Cilium using this new Terraform provider. So the Terraform files are very small, very simple. Again, this is just to show you a quick demo. We've got here a versions.tf file. That's where we're specifying the Terraform version and also the version of the providers we'll be using. So here we're using this provider to deploy a kind cluster. And also we're using this, we're also specifying the Cilium providers that Joseph has created. And we also specifying the kubeconfig path to tell the Cilium provider where to install and deploy Cilium. That's all for this versions.tf file. Now, in your main configuration file for Terraform, we've got the kind cluster configuration. So here we just specify the name, the API version, how many nodes. So here we're having a control plane node and a worker node. And also we are disabling the CNI by default because we'll be installing Cilium on top of it. And we also specifying the Cilium configuration. So here we are going to be installing version 1.14.4. We're going to be using VXLAN overlay routing and deploying one single replica and using Kubernetes IPAM mode. That's all. That's literally all there is to it to get started. So let's go ahead and deploy it. And let's do this in parallel. We'll be doing watch just to show you that something is actually happening behind, because the output of Terraform is not always verbose. So we do a watch command to watch a kubectl get nodes, and we'll see the nodes appearing, and then they go from being not ready to being ready as Cilium is being deployed. So whenever I use Terraform, I always do the same thing, which is to start by initialize this Terraform, right? So I do a Terraform init to make sure I've got the right providers, to download the providers locally. And then I do a Terraform validate that will look at the Terraform file configurations, make sure the syntax is okay. And then I do a Terraform plan. And that tells me what Terraform intends to do if I'm going to go ahead with the Terraform apply, right? So Terraform is going to go and deploy the kind cluster and deploy Cilium on top of it. And so we're going to go and do a Terraform apply auto approve. And here we go, it's creating my cluster. And so you're going to see here, you're going to start seeing the nodes being deployed. Now I am using Kine here, but you could use, the Azure provider, the GKA provider, the AWS provider to deploy a cluster and to then install Cilium on top of it, right? Where Cilium is actually, this provider for Cilium is actually using Cilium CLI under the hood. So I can't see why we wouldn't be able to use it for some of the other deployments and model. So you can see that the nodes are now being deployed. They're not quite ready. Cilium is still installing in the background. So if we do Cilium status here, you can see it's still in the process of deploying. The operator is not quite ready. It just takes a few seconds for the operator to be up and running and for the agent to come back to life. But what we'll see in a few seconds is the nodes becoming ready. Yeah, that's better. So the operator is now okay. And what's happening, and we can verify with the this command. You can see that the Cilium agents here are initializing, right? You can see here, right? So we got now one of the Cilium agent is up and running, and my nodes are now ready, and my Cilium status should be almost there. We've got one warning left, and that's it, right? And that's all. We can now use Terraform to install Cilium on your Kubernetes cluster, which I'm quite excited about. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.